Welcome to another episode of Software Explorations, Concepts, and Overviews. I am your host, Tech Coach Ralph, where we are engineered to win. Today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about my most commonly used terminal and Linux commands as a QA engineer. I use these commands just about every single day in some form or fashion. It ranges from a wide variety. But I think that whatever field that you're in the tech field, whether you are doing QA, whether you're doing software engineering, whether you're doing front end development, whether you are in cybersecurity, maybe a identity and access management engineer, or maybe a site reliability engineer, right? I think that these tools, these commands, you are going to be using them on a regular basis. Maybe not all of them, maybe not some of them to as much as I might use them as a QA engineer, but you're going to be using them in some sort of fashion, right? So I just want to jump right into it and go through what I use the most and how I use them. And then on a subsequent live stream, we can see how we can experiment with them, get some practice with them, probably through setting up a Docker container and logging into the Docker container and, navigating around, trying out these commands, see what we can do. All right. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. All right. So, like I said, the topic for today of our software exploration is the most commonly used Linux and terminal commands as a QA engineer, right? And this is what I use on a regular basis. Some other QA engineers might use some other commands, but I'm sure it's going to be very, very similar to what I use. All right. So let's jump right in. So in our agenda for today, we're going to go over the commands that I normally use. We're going to look at some examples of those commands, and then I'll mention about how you can practice some of those commands, and then we'll end it at that. All right. So let's not waste any time. All right. So let's run down the commands real quick. So the first one I think this might be one of the most that I use, and the next one, but it's the list command, which is just ls. And with that one, just type in ls and it's going to show you a list of the files and directories that are in the current folder that you are. Then we have the change directory cd. And you know what? I'm just going to run through these because then on the subsequent slides, we can actually see the example and a brief explanation of each of them. So we have change directory, which is cd. We have print the working directory, which is pwd. We have where we can move a file or a directory, which is mv for move. Then we have copy a file or a directory, which is just cp for copy. Then we have you can remove files or directories, which is pretty much deleting, which is rm. It's not del, it's rm. Then we have where we can create a new directory, which is mkdir for make directory. Then we have search for a pattern, which is grep, which, I am just starting now to get a lot more familiar with grep. I would always see it and be able to copy and paste that command with other commands, but I am just now getting a lot more familiar with it. So we're going to touch on it a little bit more, which leads us to our next command, which is to create a file. That is just the touch command. Touch command is to create a file, and then to display the content of a file, we use the cat command. Right, so let's keep going. And then we have where we can edit a file through our Vim editor. And then there is the tail command to display the last few lines of a file. And then we have where we can, I use this one all the time, right? Because the terminal, the command prompt can become have so much in it, right? So we just want to clear it out, start with a blank slate. So we have the clear command. And then to me, this one isn't necessarily a Linux command, but you use it all the time in the terminal, which is git, right? But there's so many different commands that are combined with that. And then similarly, there's also Docker, which we've seen some of that already. But we have there's the Docker command, and then there's its own set of things that follow it. Not necessarily a terminal or Linux command, but you do use them in the terminal, and you can use them on the Linux operating systems. All right. So let's jump into it a little bit further. So what is the overview of this whole presentation, right? So QA engineers often use command line and Linux commands as part of their daily task. These commands are just a starting point, and depending on the specific tasks and requirements of your QA role, you may encounter and use additional commands tailored to your testing needs, right? I just wanted to put that out there because, like I said, these are the most common ones that I say I would use, but I use so many different commands because there's like, in QA, so many moving pieces. And like you've seen on the live streams, right? I'm have to use a lot of Terraform commands. I mean, for Terraform, it's mostly Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform init, and Terraform destroy, right? But that's just one application. And then when you put in Python, and then you have, let's say we're working on Node, there's that, and then there's and like we mentioned already, there's Git, there's Docker, and the list goes on. All of these are like little applications that work in the command line that we have to get familiar with. To me, I don't really memorize any of these specific commands except for the ones that I use the most. But I know about them and I know how to find them and how to reference them. Okay. And you can always get a terminal and Linux cheat sheet as well to help you get to these commands quicker and how to pair them and all that good stuff. All right. So let's keep going. So the first one, the list command, which is just ls, right? So it lists the directory contents. This command is used to view files and directories in the current directory, right? And with that, like you can also pass parameters to it, like in the example that you see, where it says ls, and then they put the hyphen ls as well. So they want it to list, right? So that's why they have the parameter. But ls just shows you the files that are in a directory, the files and directories that are inside of the current directory. So very simple command. I use it all the time so I can see where I'm like if I need to go into a directory or know the files that are there. I just do ls and it shows me all the information that I need. I'm sure you've seen it on the live streams where I'm working through AWS or working in the terminal. I'm just always using ls to see what files are there and how to access them. Okay. So the next one, change directory. And this one is competing with the ls command, right? Because we might be changing the directory more than we're listing the files, but change directory, move to a different directory, just cd, right? So in the example, you see they do cd/home/ssit/desktop. So they were in the whatever folder they were in. So they were in pwd. They were in the home/ssit folder, and then they went into the desktop, right? So that's change directory, how you can move from one directory to another, and then you can start seeing the what's in there. Okay. So now that moves us to move files and directories, MV, right? So move or rename files or directories. So in this example, we have the ls to list the files and the directories in the current folder. And now they want to move the sample1.txt to the documents folder, which is what they're doing. So now when they do ls again, you can see they're doing an ls of what's inside the documents folder, and it is the sample1.txt file that is in there. So if we move that along to the copy files or directory, so instead of doing mv to copy the file or to move the file, you just do cp, and now it's going to copy that file, and then you give it a new name, and there you have it. It's going to copy that file for you. Okay. And then the same way that we can copy or move a file, we can also remove a file or a directory. So in this example below, it's doing rm. So it's removing the my file one. So then when they do ls again, you see that my file one is no longer present. So that is the remove files or directory. And then we can easily also make a directory with mkdir for make directory. And in the example below, they said, and you see how they created 3 different directories in one command, right? A make directory, file 1, file 2, file 3. When they do the ls, it has those folders, those directories created. All right, so now we can also search for a file, right? And the grep command is usually chained, from what I've seen, is chained with with another command. So in the example below, it says ls to list the contents of a directory, and then they have a pipe and they say grep documents, right? So what they're doing is they want to find any patterns that have the documents in there. So that's why they passed the grep. Um, in the example, they also deleted the documents folder, so that's why they don't have any results. But they are searching for a file or folder name documents. When they do ls, it's only going to show those as opposed to the whole list of things. All right. So then we have to create a file. So there's different ways to create a file, right? You can create a file through Vim, but this one in particular is probably the most common one. It's the touch command, right, to create a new file. So in this example, it says touch linux.txt. And now when they do ls to list the directory, or not but the content of the directory, now it has that linux.txt file that was just created, as well as the ubuntu.txt file that already existed. All right. Now you can print the file content, right? So you pretty much output you output the content into the terminal. So it's the cat command. All right. So the cat command prints the content of a file onto the standard output stream, which would be the terminal. And in the example below, they said cat combo. So cat combo is hello everyone at Java T point, right? And so that's what the content of the combo file was. It says hello everyone at Java T point. All right, and then below they show you how you can move the content append it to another file. So now when they do cat combo 2, it says hello everyone at still says it says hello everyone at Java T point. But now that information is part of combo 2. All right. So then you can edit the file. So this is the Vim editor. That's the one that I use most commonly when I'm in the terminal. I'll just do Vim and then the name of the file, and then it opens up a little editor, and then I can go in there and insert text into the file. And then once I'm done, I save the file, and then it takes me back to my terminal screen. There are more than one text editor that you can use, but the one that I most commonly use is the Vim editor, because I've been using the Vim editor for maybe now 20 years. So that's just the one that I'm most familiar with. There might be better out there. I don't know. But I'm just so much more familiar with the Vim editor because that's the one that I was introduced to, and that's the one that I've always been using. All right. So now we go to displaying the last few items, the last few lines in a file. Okay. So that's the tail command. And there's by default, I believe it's going to show you the last 5 lines in a file when you do tail, and then the name of the file. But then there's parameters that you can pass to it as well, where you can pass, like, I think the -n is the number of lines that you want to display. And I think I could be off on this, right? But when I was like tailing the log files, like you could, I believe you could pass the number, the number of the like, because the telling the log files, it would be like as the logs are being written, it would show you the file. So I think you could tell like the last 5 lines of the live log file. So it would always be showing you the last 10 lines that are being entered, that are being logged, So it's a very, very important and powerful command. So I've definitely used that quite a bit. And then we have to clear the terminal screen. That is super, super, super important. So all you have to do is type in, like you just write in clear, right? When you write in clear, it just totally clears your terminal. And then you have a blank slate, and you can just start writing your code all over again. Okay. So I use clear all the time because it gets all, muddied up, and I'm just like, oh, you know what? Clear. And then I wish I could do that with my browser, because my tabs and my browser windows just keep expanding and expanding. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like browser and tab overload. But in terminal, I just do clear, and I might just have to nuke all my browsers and start over as well. But that's the beauty of the clear command in the terminal screen. Right now, we get into more of um, practical application type stuff like so Git, right? So I'm gonna go over some. We're not gonna see examples of it, but you see me do it all the time, right? And we'll probably have specific sessions about this. But there's the Git command, like that is the parent command of so many uh, different things, right? So Git is for like version control and like collaboration and tracking. So there is the init command, which creates a new Git repository. It can be used to convert an existing repository unversioned project to a Git repo. So it can be used to convert an existing unversioned project to a Git repo or initialize a new empty repository. All right. So that's like to initialize your Git your Git repo. And then we have the branch command, which lets you create, list, rename, and delete branches. Then there's the git checkout command. It lets you navigate between branches created by Git branches. All right. Then we have the git add. It adds a change in the working directory to the staging area. And then we have the git commit command, which captures a snapshot of the project's currently staged changes. So when you do a git add, it stages the files, and then you do a git commit, it's going to capture that snapshot of the project's currently staged files. And then we have the git merge command, where that one, it lets you take the independent lines of development created by the Git branch and integrate them into a single branch. So pretty much you would have your like the branch that you're working on for development, and it has pretty much the new code, right? Then you say you want to merge that into the master branch because you want to have a single branch that has all the changes, because you can't just have your branches going all over the place. You want it to be clean and neat. All right. So with we'll go. So with Git, there's a plenty of like it is just its own application itself, because there's commands like rebase, there's commands like pull, there's commands like push. Pull is to pull from the remote repository, and push is to push the changes to the remote repository, right? There's so many different things with it. But these are the most common ones that I use, and I just wanted to share that with you. So now if we go over into the Docker, right? Very similar to what we're looking at for Git. Docker is the parent software, and under Docker, we have so I think this is the one that I use the most, right? The Docker run command. It runs a command in a new container, pulling the image if it's needed, and it starts the container, so you can start using it, interact with it. You can log in, you can connect to it on the ports that are exposed, all of that good stuff, right? So that is what the Docker run command does. And then we have the Docker build command, because it builds Docker images from a Docker file and a context, right? So we looked at that just the other day, where we during the rock paper scissors challenge, where we built the Docker image based on the Docker file, and we did the same thing for on the other live stream, where we were creating a Docker image of an Express app. All right. So the Docker build command is super important, and you're definitely going to be using it in your testing endeavors. Then we have the Docker pull command. So it downloads a Docker image or a repository locally onto the host from a public or private registry. And so you can have it pulling from the Docker Hub, as well as you can have it being pulled from a private registry on AWS. What is it called? ECS instances, right? It's because you can have your private Docker repo, Docker image repo there as well, where you can pull from. So it is, it's quite a bit. So honorable mentions, I already mentioned them earlier, but I just wanted to touch on them again. So we have Python commands as well as pip commands, where there's a lot of installing that's done through pip. Python command is used to execute different applications or scripts. So it's there's a lot that you do through that, and the same thing for Node, because with Node you can start up an application, you can install necessary libraries and stuff like that, and then we have I mentioned like earlier. We have Terraform where you can set up infrastructure as code, and you have like the most common ones of Terraform Plan, Terraform Apply, Terraform Destroy, Terraform Init. So many different things like and this is just QA specific, right? A little bit of software development in there, but this is very QA specific because you have Linux administrators who do so much outside of that, like networking and IP address stuff, and I'm just touching on the surface of it, geared specifically towards QA, right? So let's go here, and so in conclusion, right? Those are my top Linux and terminal commands. Um, I'm sure that other people have, like, based on their needs and their industry, they have their top Linux and terminal commands that they use, right? It's and some of them are application and language specific commands, So it just varies from person to person. But me as a QA engineer for the past 15 years, that is the most commonly used commands that I use in the terminal or in Linux, right? So the question is, how can you practice this, right? So there are quite a few ways that you can do that. You can install Linux on a virtual machine, and then you connect to that, and you use the terminal to practice these commands. You could do it on a spare computer if you have a spare computer lying around. Or one of my favorites is you can do it on a Docker container, where you can try that out, and you can create files. You can create files. You can move those files around. You can delete those files. You can create directories. All of the commands that we went through, you can actually do that on there. So whether it's on a VM, whether you're using a spare computer, or whether you're using Docker, right? Those are some ways that you can practice. And then you can. So I plan to have a live stream where I think I'm going to use Docker to start up a Linux command or a Linux machine, a Linux container, where we can go ahead and practice some of these top commands, right? And I would say if you want more information on Linux and on Linux and on the commands that you'd use, how to set it up, I would say go out there and check. There's two channels I'm going to recommend, right? Check out Keep It Techie on YouTube, as well as check out Women in Linux with Tam over there. Two amazing Linux channels. I am like by far not a Linux channel, but there are, there's QA crosses over to so many different industries and sectors of tech. So I would say those are the commands that I use on a regular basis, right? But I definitely say go out there and check out their channels. So let me go back to full screen before we wrap it up. So yeah, one more time, I would say go out there and check Keep It Techie. Josh over there has amazing Linux information as well as SQL. He has a course or instructional on how to set up a MySQL database in a Linux environment. So he's doing it all from the command line, right? No GUI interface, and I would also say check out Tam at Women in Linux as well, because another resource for amazing Linux and tech news and stuff like that. All right. So that is the presentation for today. I just wanted to share with you the top commands that I use when I'm, when I'm working as a QA engineer. Been doing it for over 15 years now, and I'm continuing to gather more and more knowledge. And so I just find more and more use in all of these things. So I just hope that was able to help you. If you found that informative, do me one favor. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can know every time that we go live and every time that we drop a new video, because I am looking to add more and more value into you. All right. Like the video, share the video. And if you haven't done so yet, check out the Patreon at techcoachralph.dev. Thank you for tuning in. I truly appreciate your time. Looking forward to connect with you again. Join me on the live stream so you can chat with me. All right. But until next time, this is Tech Coach Ralph signing off.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.